Hello everyone. I got a request from Longer 3D to test one of their printers, and I do love testing 3D printers, so of course I said yes. What's the printer's mine to keep? There's no requirements from Longer 3D on what I should say, so everything stated in this video is my own opinion, but I always recommend checking several sources before deciding to buy something. The box it arrives in is pretty huge, and has a lot of foam in it. In my case, everything arrived without any damage thanks to the good packaging. It comes partly pre-assembled with the typical kit of spatula, manual, SD card and USB card adapter. Assembling it was very easy and only took around 30 minutes. You have the base piece, the standing frame, the X-axis beam and then the two rods that sit between the base piece and the standing frame. Those two rods makes an incredible difference when it comes to frame stiffness. You can move this printer around any way you want, mid-print or otherwise, and everything just keeps working fine. Compared to other printers of similar design, without these bars, they will go out of calibration from being moved. There's also a separate build surface you clamp onto the aluminium heat bed, as you can see in this finished kit. First non-issue I came across was the bed being loose, or rather not being adjusted in. It rolls along on 6 wheels, which need to be adjusted so they're all sitting snug against the aluminium extrusion. Easy thing to fix and something you might need to adjust with wear and tear. All you do is find the eccentric nuts and rotate them slightly to move the wheels around. All wheels should have a firm grip on the beam. A few things I noticed before even printing. The single part cooler, it would have been much better to have cooling from two sides. I both love and hate the screen. It's a really nice interface and having a color screen is awesome, but it's a bit too dim and can be hard to see in a well-lit room. The whole printer is pretty well designed, and visually the only thing that annoys me is the cable management. The cables have a tendency to fall out of the covers, and I'm not particularly fond of having the cable stems just flopping about. Just waiting for them to get stuck on something. It does not have a leveling sensor, but doing a manual level is super easy with the graphical interface. I've only calibrated this once, right after I built it. After at least 100 hours of printing, it's still putting down perfect first layers. In this case, I absolutely do not see the need for a level sensor. It does have a sub-menu for auto leveling, not sure if it's an optional upgrade or if they forgot to remove it from the firmware. The Z switch can be a bit tricky to get in just the right spot, but it's not a big problem. It sorts itself out during the manual leveling. I saw that the Cura slicer has a default profile for this printer and decided to try it out. Mind you, I've never tried Cura besides testing it a few times, several years ago. The default profile for some reason has draft enabled. Very wasteful of material, but I decided to go full default. The first print is a scaled down Benchy, and besides going a bit slow, seems to be coming out fairly well. Whilst printing, the screen gives all typical information. Would be nice with a time remaining information though. You can easily go into the tune submenu and change temperatures and also use the semi-automatic filament swap feature. I did try the filament swap feature once, but it's horrendously slow when it's feeding the filament back in. Here you also see the integrated filament sensor. Notice how close my camera is and how little noise it's picking up. The R2D2 sounds you hear is actually from another printer across the room. You can still get a clock that will ruin your print however. It only checks if filament is there, not if it's stopped. This is how the Benchy came out, all standard settings. Definitely an approved print. I played around quite a lot with the slicer profile, increasing layer heights, printing speeds and so on. Eventually I reached a point where the extruder kept skipping steps. I imagine the 2 kg spools I use do not help. I decided to dig into the main board and see what kind of current the extruder motor was getting, since it wasn't even getting warm. The main board sits underneath the printer, under a panel next to one of the legs. After increasing the current slightly so it matched other drivers, the motor was getting warm to the touch and all kinds of extruder skips had been fixed. So after this I just kept printing thing after thing to get to know the printer. Here's an example of some machine holders I printed on the LK5 Pro, around 10 hours each. This is where I decided to challenge the printer a bit, keeping in mind that it does have a large build size. I kept the print speed quite high and started a 26-hour print. As always, the printer put down a nearly perfect first layer and just kept going. Upon my return many hours later, I noticed a problem my previous models had not exposed. Mainly some kind of retraction or ooze problem with all the bulges and zits in the print. If you ignore the zits, then the print looks great, so you just need to figure out why it's oozing all of a sudden. I decided to let the print keep going, and the next time I checked on it, this was the result. You can see the zits disappear again on the round part where it doesn't have to travel between towers, so to speak. But more importantly, A massive nozzle clog has caused the filament to snap and exit out of the extruder in a pretty funny way. I've never seen this happen before. I replaced the nozzle, recut the filament tube on the end that goes towards the nozzle to make sure it had a good seal. I also delved deeper into Cura and added some coasting, combing, wipe, and also adjusted the retraction settings a bit. This seems to have pretty much eliminated both clogs and sits. One further thing I adjusted in Cura was the maximum resolution and deviation. This was set to pretty crazy values, which I suspect is why it quite randomly paused and created sits in the print, as the mainboard gets overwhelmed with information and causes stuttering. Once the print didn't finish, it was good enough that I could use it for its intended purpose. A cable protector for my welder. The last time this cable got hit, it broke some internal brass pieces. Hopefully this cover stops that from happening again. Anyway, after those adjustments, I've had absolutely zero issues with this printer. It just keeps going and going and going. The build surface is amazing, sticks like crazy when it's warm and releases nicely when cold. Here's just a small sample of the things I printed on this LK5 Pro. I'm not going to say buy or don't buy, but personally, I really like this printer. I mean, sure, some things could be improved upon, but for its price bracket, I really think it delivers a lot. Hope you enjoyed the video and feel free to check out the rest I got on my channel. Bye!